um, a little disappointment. I know some people were really waiting yesterday to hear of the show, but these things happen. But we're not allowed that to
No,
dampen us.
no.
I think this show, at the end of today, people will forget the coolness of the rain and
Right.
everything else because we'll be bringing warmth. And the discussion today is such that I don't think that I could have carried it all alone. And I have with me, with us, Mr. Daniel Bob, who is the general manager of the Foncier Credit Union, to share with us, some of the new developments that are going on at the Foncier Credit Union and in the movement going forward. So we have a good discussion awaiting us today, this morning. Mr. Bob.
Good morning, Mr. Prospere. Good morning, Ms. Lamontagne. Good morning, people in Facebook land and radio land. I know it's nice and cool out there, and they say it's 10 fingers, 10 toes kind of weather, but some of us have to work. And so I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I'm wishing you all a wonderful day, and hopefully we can have a discussion that can keep you all mind going and keep you all interested in staying with the program. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a bit sad that you all refer to me as guest. I thought I was Jakai. I thought I was Jakai by now.
You
but
see, the
I'm
thing is,
guest.
Mr. Bob, you're not there with us every last Thursday, so
That's because you don't invite me every last Thursday.
blame Mr. Prospere.
Mr. Bob has a very hectic schedule. Sometimes he's running here, there, and everywhere. People sometimes think that being a manager, all you do is sit at the desk. And with a lot of things happening, we really we cannot impose on him too much and thing. But we still want today because he is in a special capacity here today. He's bringing a lot of warmth because of the good news. We know what is happening in terms of our new location and so forth. I don't want to speak too much. I would let Mr. Bob do this. But Mr. Bob, growth is the big word. And the last time we were here, John, we were saying that of the credit unions, Foncier Credit Unions was a baby, or is still a baby in terms of the number of years. We would have the older ones like Swazel, who came in the early 60s, and the civil service now, Janou. All right, these people came in the 60s, Labrie in the 70s. And if you go along the, we only came in the second half of the 1990s. So a lot of things, when we came in, we had to struggle trying to build a foundation, build a name, trying to get people to buy into, I don't want to say a remote community, but a lot of people really didn't know of Foncier. And now Foncier is on the map for several things, including the credit union. And when I left, I knew that someone was going to come and carry on the good work. And I'm certain that the persons who were part of the decision making in hiring Mr. Bob, now, so many years later, I think it's a decision, and they would all agree that it was a good decision going forward. So you want to ensure that the members of Foncier Credit Union and all the persons who reap the benefits, because there are organizations, schools and so forth that benefit from the other responsibilities, the social responsibilities that the credit union have. Okay, so it's a good thing. We're going forward. I think I've taken a lot of the time. So, Mr. Bob.
Maybe before Mr. Bob go into the good news and share what he has to, Mr. Bob, it would be nice if you share your position right now at the Foncier Credit Union for listeners that are not aware of what it is.
Okay, so I'm the manager. I've been the manager for the past 4.5 years. I'm on to my 5th year, and that's basically what I've been doing. Providing the the management of the day-to-day operations of the credit union with its two branches, as per the policies and rules and regulations set forth by the board and by the acts and by our bylaws. So that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis. It involves a lot, especially of an organization that size. So you're the HR manager, you're the operations manager, you're the janitor, you're the cleaner. I mean, the reason why I'm late is because when I went there this morning at a new branch to open up for the guy to install a changeover switch, the yard was flooded, and I had to walk through this 3 inches of water, and then get something to unclog the drain and to be in the rain, and that's what you do when you have a passion for what you do and you enjoy what you do. So you would find me being a security when I have to. You'd find me being a janitor, like I said. You find me assisting. The only thing I'm not allowed to do, because it's not possible, is to do tailoring. Because of my position, I don't have an account set up for that. So that's the only thing I do. I do loans, everything. That's just the nature. In fact, that's the nature of our organization when it comes to all our staff. All our staff pitch in and do what is required of them. But I want to go back to the scene that you set in terms of how this organization developed. And I think you're a bit modest, but I don't think there are many credit unions who would have entered into the arena in the kind of environment that the Foncier Credit Union entered into. You're talking about entering into an environment where there are two established banks, right? I don't think Library or Chosel had that experience.
No.
All right. So pretty much when Library and Chosel came in, that was the only financial service provider within close proximity to the persons. So having to get persons to move away or to join as well a credit union from Foncier would have taken quite a bit of work done. And I came in, and I always say that thankfully with a foundation already well set by my predecessor, Mr. Dominique Prospere, who had the procedures, the staff in place and so on, who would have made things a lot easier for me coming in new, and also the board. And a president, I keep mentioning President Philippi, who is a very committed president. You can ask for a better person as president. Sadly, he will be leaving us at the end of this AGM because he has served 2 terms, which that's the maximum amount of time.
According to the law, the regulations,
so we now are on hand for a suitable replacement for him. It'll be some big shoes to fill. And of course, you have another stalwart in Monica Louis. I mean, those persons really held my hand and walked me through. And of course, Mr. Prospere was always a phone call. And if he didn't answer his phone, I could just walk across to his room.
He's still a phone call away.
Walk across to his room and wake him up and call him, and he provided tremendous support. But also, I want to place on record 2 other persons in that movement that are pillars. Mr. Elivic, who is the general manager of Library Credit Union, and Mr. Simeon, who is the general manager of the Monrepo Eastern Credit Union. Those 2 guys are still persons that I look to anytime I have to make a decision, and they're always there to assist me, including that decision that we had to make sometime last year when it became available to us by the form of an offer for the purchase of the ex-FCIB building. So we were approached. We went to look at it, and we were excited about it, but that's when the hard work begins, because the law requires that you now have to do 2 things mainly. You have to get the permission of the FSRA, which is the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. And for the FSRA to grant you that permission, you have to get the approval of the membership.
Right.
So you had to call a special general meeting to discuss that aspect, that purchase. So we had to put things in order to make a proposal to our members to say, hey, this is the offer, I think we should go for it. And we had a choice of whether we were going to buy it by loan or by cash, or part loan, part cash. And when we did the analysis, we agreed that we were going to purchase it cash, which again speaks to the strength of the credit union. So that process had to go on, and of course, after FSRA would have given us the permission, and that's why when I last came here, I could not announce it as yet because we had to get those permission.
Mr. Prospere has been leaving us in surprises.
Yes, but we actually purchased the property from officially in April. And we were hoping that we could have opened in May because there wasn't much work really to be done. But of course, we got affected like everybody else by the supply chain issues of having to get equipment from overseas and stuff from overseas to get ready. So there are a few things that kept us behind. But I'm happy to say today, and the announcements have been hopefully on your radio
Yes.
and other places, that we are scheduled to open for operations on Monday, the 4th of July. All right. And to try to celebrate that, we are hoping to have and I'm saying hoping now because we have scheduled an opening ceremony for Sunday afternoon at 3:30 at the front of the building on the road. But that I'm saying maybe now because we're watching a system that is likely to affect us for sure, possibly from today, tomorrow, and possibly into Sunday. And we certainly don't want to put anybody into harm's way or.
Just to clarify something, you just mentioned that you're hoping to open on Monday, the 4th of July. But to me, I heard the ad was saying that you're closed on Monday.
No, I said the ad says goes on to say that the Fort Saint-Jacques branch will be closed to allow the staff from Fort Saint-Jacques to come down to the Soufriere branch
understood.
on that day so that we can probably have all hands on deck and we can also all enjoy our first day at our new home.
Yeah, kind of a family environment, everybody together.
We hope that people will come in and just come and members, non-members, persons would come in and ask questions, join. So we hope that people
if you're listening, you will hear that non-members, they're waiving all fees for new accounts.
That's right. So you could ask for a better time to come and join. And I know you may be members of other credit unions or the bank and so on. It doesn't hurt to spread your eggs and not have it in all in one basket. So we'll be happy to have you be a member of the Fort Saint-Jacques Credit Union. There are tremendous benefits to be enjoyed being a member of the credit union. You're going to be in very good hands, and you're going to be in the hands of persons who care about your welfare, who know you and care about your welfare, and would not take any decision that is likely to hurt you, because we're not profit-driven. We are driven by our members' dreams and aspirations.
Yes, Mr. Bob, you alluded to the challenges very early, and just recently, I think in less than a month ago, I was speaking to the manager of Dennery, a co-op who incidentally is a cousin of mine. Okay. So it looks like this passion is in the family. And she was saying how difficult it was as a community where there isn't so much economic activity, and to have to put up with the challenges that Fort Saint-Jacques had to put up with in Soufriere, because Barclays Bank into FCIBC, these were thriving institutions. I can remember going and make a pitch to the then manager of Bank of St. Lucia. And I said, hey, do you know a lot of the loans that you are given is only facilitated by the Fort Saint-Jacques Credit Union? He said, what do you mean? I said, but many of these guys, for them to qualify for a loan, they need to come up with a certain deposit. But they don't have it. So they come to the Fort Saint-Jacques Credit Union, and they get that deposit and then go there and get the loan. And he never really is until then. He says, and I was actually able to negotiate a special package at the time because of that. And I said, this is, you shouldn't see it as competition. Okay? Another thing she came up with was that when we started doing salary deduction, a lot of people were just as an assignment, because most of the salaries, the institution of preference would have been the established banks.
That's right.
Whereas Swaza, there was no bank. So everybody now, the entire salary was going there. All right, most of them, and the same for Labrie. So it was a lot easier for these individuals, these credit unions to get up, and because of that, you find it a lot easier to grant your loans, Mr. Bob, because if somebody's entire salary is coming to you, then in terms of security, in terms of the repayment of the loan. So it was a challenge. And to have been able, and I can remember one of our auditors saying, Mr. Prosper, we need to work on moving away from you, the individual, because people have confidence in you, and make it move into the confidence in the institution.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of the things,
succession planning,
you try to put things in place, and when I took on the management, it was twofold. One, that we were really taking off, computerized and things of that nature, and the staff was increasing because we had just opened up the branch in Soufriere, that on the 9th. That was my birthday gift to the credit union. On the 9th of August, my birthday was the day before. So,
remember the year?
Yes, that was in 2010.
2010, okay.
Right, 2010. So right when I was retiring from the school, that is what happened. So the year resonates, and when you said, but you really need to have, because it was very demanding as president to be doing all these things, and I was dealing with my health issues at the time, and you mentioned two giants there, Mrs. Louis and Mr. Philippi. I said, Mr. Prosper, we really need somebody, and since people believe that you're trustworthy and think, at least could you. And Trinidad, MSD was saying they needed somebody that they could relate with.
Right.
And so I was put in a situation.
You couldn't say no.
I couldn't have said no. I said, okay.
I'm happy you didn't. Because sometimes you need people with the institutional knowledge, but also the passion and the stake. You had a lot at stake. I mean, all the hard work you had done, and all. I mean, I think clearly people can see that you have a passion for Jacques, at least. The development.
Yeah, well, it is out of the passion for the community. But I mean, I've always said, Fonse Jacques is part of Soufriere.
Yeah.
And you're not being selfish. Yes, it was tough, but I think when we were getting registered, the registrar prevented us from encompassing the entire of Soufriere. I think I've said that on a number of occasions. And we pushed until we said, okay, at Lapel, so that was where our boundary was.
Is it still?
No, that had to change. Under when the act was changed in 2000, I think under Mr. Elivic, then registrar, we changed our boundaries to increase everything from Edmond Forest down to the sea, and from Bouton down to Myers Bridge. That was where we are. And then we included to say any once you had links with Soufriere,
any interest,
this kind of thing that you have. So it was a struggle, but to be able to see now that Fonse Jacques owns its own property in the town of Soufriere on Bridge Street.
The Wall Street of Soufriere.
Mr. Prospere is saying that with a big smile.
Not just any building, the building of the first, I think it's the first financial institution. 25 years ago, when you all started that room to draw plans to open a credit union, did you all ever believe that you would be Barclays or First Caribbean would no longer be in Soufriere, and Fonse Jacques Credit Union
would occupy that space.
Purchase and occupy that building.
Purchase, so own
and
occupy.
Which is symbolic.
Yes.
But I want to go back to how the banks have also benefited from the presence of the Fonse Jacques Credit Union. I mean, if the banks are honest, they would tell a lot of people that they're now targeting for loans, for people that they would not have looked at previously.
Exactly.
The self-employed, the farmer, the fisherman, and so on. And the Foster Credit Union and credit unions around St. Lucia, and I dare say around the world, have shown those established financial institutions that some of the most trustworthy and most honest persons when it comes to loans and payments of loans are those type of people, the self-employed, the farmer, the fisherman, the vendor, and so on. And we have shown that those people are sometimes more likely to pay their loan or less likely to default on their loan than the people that the banks were targeting at the time. And so now we find ourselves, how it has worked against us now, we now find ourselves having the bank now competing with those same persons that they didn't, like I see the bank, but financial institutions, the traditional ones, competing now with the same set of people that they probably would not have looked at.
They would not have entertained at all.
20, 25 years ago.
You're right.
And now offering them all kinds of things to woo them away. And I must say the Foster Jack members have remained loyal despite all the glitter and glamour that is thrown in their face. And that's the reason why we can do what we're doing now. 25 years later, we can now boast of being able to purchase that building and operate and do it cash. It's because members continue to believe. The other thing you said was the trust. Sometimes people, no matter what you try, people will have trust or not trust certain individuals in an organization, especially when it comes to their money.
Money, right.
All right? And that's why our staff always have to portray that image outside of work as well, that you're trustworthy, the business remain confidential. So there's some person come and tell you, Mr. Bob or Mr. Prospere, I want a loan. But we have a loans officer. No, I want you because I trust you. You know, and you try to help them understand that, hey, you can trust our loans officer. We trust our loans officer, and we do not want to what's the word? Micromanage or do the work. But that's just how some people are, you know, when it comes to money and when it comes to trusting persons. So I say that to tell my staff and everybody else that we need to have that image out that our members can trust us, and our interactions, how we maintain our confidentiality and so on is important.
Yeah, it is something where you have to be operating above board. And I'm happy that you mentioned outside of the workplace as well. It is the image. You know, if people feel that your tongue is very loose out there, they would think twice, thrice before they can discuss, because sometimes people are going through some really rough times. And I thought I knew a lot, having been a principal dealing with a lot of parents. When I went into the credit union, I saw even more, because then they were coming in the financial bit. And there were people, they look good and proper out there in public, but financially they were not very sound. And they would come to you. And I think because of the relationship that I had with the community as such, and the trust, that they were able to disclose certain things to me, knowing full well that it would stay there, right? And sometimes I would go home, Mr. Bob, and I can't even listen to much of what my wife has to say. Right? Because you're carrying this thing and you say, boy, you know how, but you cannot offload because this is given to you in confidence. But then going forward, Mr. Bob, I mean.
But let me ask you, there were times, did you not wish that the organization belonged to you? Because some of the cases that come before you, I mean, sometimes you want to take your own money and give it to them because you understand the situation. And the decisions sometimes are not yours to make. So a loan above a certain amount has to go to the credit committee and the board. And sometimes you meeting that person, you feel an obligation to want to help the person, but you have to remember this is not your organization. And sometimes you wish, boy, this was like, if this was my organization, I would help you and take the risk. But we know better than that.
A lot of people feel that because you're the manager, you know, by just a stroke of a pen, you can make it happen. You also have the regulators, and moving from the cooperative department managing credit unions to the FSRA was a big leap.
It is.
Okay, because you now had to be, especially when we heard as to what was happening to some established credit unions, and you said, you know, are we doing things right? And if you're small, and these guys come down on you, not because they're doing things wrong. I mean, they have their mandate and the act that causes them, but to come there, that could actually break you down.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you, as much as possible, you dot all your I's and cross, so to speak. And But Mr. Bob, on that side of it, one of the bad things about this, I can remember the department coming, you know, to see what we were doing, do the little audit. And the first card that they put up was mine.
Yes.
And there was an instance where a withdrawal was made from the account. I wasn't owing any loan or anything. And they questioned it, just a withdrawal, just to make sure that this day was approved.
Yes.
And you were not using your influence to make things happen.
Right.
So people will say, oh, the credit union, like someone just told me earlier, there's a lot of tralala. But a lot of this thing is in keeping with the regulations. And they have tightened the Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorism Act.
That's right.
That you had to ensure that the institution is covered. Because if the manager authorizes one of the staff to do things and it comes in public, they can revoke the license.
In fact, you can be charged. You can be charged and you can be in prison.
I
Such
mean,
is the law.
it's so
you violate
serious, right?
certain regulations or rules
You
far as
so
anti-money
with you
laundering,
as individual, and it can have the impact on the institution itself.
Right.
So when you have invested so much, and that is one of the reasons why I took up the managerial position to make sure that certain things was put in place,
Right.
so that when I made my exit a lot later, because intentionally it was meant to have been 2 years, and I stayed 6 years. All right, but then the body was speaking loudly, and long story short, almost immediately afterwards, I would have been forced out anyway because of other things. But knowing what has happened with you as the manager, your staff, the board, and all the changes, I mean, Francois can now stand, and beat our chest, so to speak.
Yes.
Not that you've been boastful, but to say yes, some victory over the many challenges, the many obstacles that you have had to face.
Yep.
I noticed the times that Mr. Bob would go, and probably when he gets to his home, I need a break. I don't want to hear anybody.
The phone rings anyway.
Yes,
the phone rings
the phone rings, and they find a way to
It's and people tell you just don't answer, but you never know. I mean, you're on your wedding anniversary in a villa,
and your phone rings.
And your phone rings, yeah. And not just members, FSRA calls, the league calls. I mean, that's just the nature of the work.
Yeah.
It is, and it's getting a lot more as with the advent of all those things you mentioned, FSRA, the new regulators, now having to deal with all kind of international regulations. Because the anti-money, people tell you anti-terrorism, what kind of terrorism? I know terrorism in terrorism, really. They cave that. I mean, because you have something called corresponding banking. So to make certain things trade happen internationally, our local banks have to interact with our foreign banks. So and so a businessman going overseas to buy goods costing $500,000 or whatever will not walk with that money in his pocket.
Exactly.
He goes, he gets it, and he does his transaction through the banker St. Lucia, who now has a counterpart or a corresponding bank in New York, Bank of New York, or whatever. All right? So the pressure has been placed on those international banks to ensure that every link and every partner that deals with them is following international rules and regulations. Otherwise, you'll be there's something called de-risking. And that means that, well, all right, if Banker Solution cannot follow those international regulations, whether or not we think it affects us down here or not directly, you'll be cut off. All right? And what the effect of that, not just on Banker Solution, but the entire country, trade can come to a standstill, because how would those local businessmen be able to get their goods from overseas and pay for it? So we are forced on. People ask, but now somebody tell me, let me say Prospere, your ID must be business, your bagay, convene now, the ID, but not our fault, mom. Not our fault. We have to abide by those regulations. You need to identify yourself properly. 2 forms of ID. You need to give us a proof of address to open an account.
But nothing will stay the same. Eventually, everything will change.
Yeah, right. But when we started, there was no need for the ID.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, everybody knew everybody, and that was what it was. Then the ID, one ID, right? But because of all been happening, and you mentioned this idea of the de-risking. I mean, Baileys, for example, cannot do any international transactions for their banks, right? Thankfully, things like Western Union and MoneyGram, and institutions like that is allowing the money to flow. You do not want to have a situation like that happening on island. I mean, Little St. Lucia, I mean, you know how that is. So you have to, as much as possible, ensure that you operate within the purview of the law. And that's the thing. And a lot of people has been saying, but when you were, I have to continue that education. Things have changed. The regulations. I can remember being at some session with the anti-money laundering people there, and they shared certain things. It's like, wow, eye-opening, you know. So you have to ensure that certain things are put in place. And I'm saying too, you want also that the institution you represent does not find itself in disrepute.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, if this is to close down, you find yourself being in prison, or a member of your staff being in prison, it reflects on you as the manager. Okay, so.
And I live in Soufriere, so people know where to find me if they can get their money.
Sadly.
It's serious business. Maybe it does not appear so when you see our staff interacting with you, but there are lots of things that you have to abide by. Even things like you have to now report anybody who lives overseas or have accounts with us. We have to report that through FATCA.
For FATCA, yes.
CRS. So these things have to be sent in on time. Speaking of which, probably have a deadline to do that. But people are using credit unions and offshore banks and all kinds of banks to try and hide their income to avoid having to pay income tax in the country of
Somebody
origin.
stated that America is changing the laws to suit them.
And a lot of that. A lot of that. And one of the things on a local level, I think a lot of things were started by the Canadian banking system. At one time, CIBC and Scotiabank, Royal Bank, these were the big banks pushing things in St. Lucia. Okay, and when things were not in their favor, because the statistics were showing that there's a large gravitation towards the credit union movement. And so in the Caribbean, these banks were no longer the bank of choice, the financial institution of choice. Okay? And they tried to put things to stifle the credit union movement. But we have been resilient.
Resilient. And I must say, I mean, kudos to the bigger ones who have blazed the trail for us. So you now have Library Credit Union now having almost like a region, island-wide jurisdiction. Moneypool Credit Union is doing the same. Janu Credit Union. And like I said, when it comes to Library and Moneypool, no matter how big they are, I think they've recognized that their role with the league and everything else is a supportive role for credit unions. Smaller than theirs. And I'm happy with people like Mr. Elevic who are not out there pushing up their chest and saying, boy, I'm bigger than the league.
Yes,
so,
right.
So they are bigger than the league financially and so on.
Yes.
But these guys are always at league meetings, always assisting, always helping. Like I said, it's a phone call away, and we like that about our movement. Choiseul, in as much as Choiseul and Fonseca are almost competitors, and probably be even bigger competitors because now we face to face
Face
with
to
them.
face. Face to face.
I mean, we work together. We have
but
support from children
that-
staff, and that kind of thing.
And I think I've mentioned it here before.
Yes.
I mean, when we were struggling, especially when we were moving into the computerization. I mean, we started even with Saltibus.
Yeah.
We had some assistance from Saltibus. We don't hear so much about them, but we had the manager came across. We had Miss Epifan, it was, who came across to look at whatever. That's from Switzerland. We had one of our staff member actually go into the library and sit there, spend a whole week, sitting there and see how things were. It's a hand holding.
Yeah.
And I have always spoken about the movement. Yes, I want Force Jacques to do well. But if the movement fails, Force Jacques is going to fail.
Yeah.
All right. And if we support one another rather than going and try to tear down, yes, I know.
Right.
We want to maintain our position and our contribution in society. But you cannot go tearing down one another. And even when it comes to legal matters, Mr. Bob, when we come together, they say unity is strength.
Yeah.
And we can speak it in the same voice, rather than things.
Yeah.
So we are going forward.
We are going forward.
And I know that there are bigger things to happen. Because some people are saying, well, you're going into this thing. Are we going to have online banking?
Yes,
you know?
certainly.
I was about to ask that
Certainly.
question and the ATM services. Yes.
Yeah, so let me say what I probably
Before,
have said to
Mr.
myself.
Bob,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you short, but before you go into your statement, somebody made a statement on Facebook saying, I am part of the Fontainebleau Credit Union, and Mr. Bob has been of great help and encouragement to me. Thank you, sir. I just wanted to share this one
you're
with
most
you.
welcome.
Yes.
That's my job. That's my job.
Yes.
Yeah. What I was saying, I want us to. I mean, we're moving into a new environment, a new business, taking the business up another notch. That's not the end all and be all. All right. At the end of the day, it will redound to the quality of service we provide and the type of service we provide. You can have a nice building, which we have a nice building, nice, comfortable, safe building. But at the end of the day, members are concerned about how this is going to benefit them in terms of the type of product. So we now have to provide the products that are satisfying to our members. And of course, right now, loans and interest rates is a big thing now. We can no longer rely on the traditional 1% per month.
Right.
You're having business interest rates as low as 3-4% and so on. So we have to decide if we can follow that. And how best we can provide those products for our members. So very soon we'll be announcing a promotion as we move into our new building. In fact, a number of promotions we'll be announcing to meet that. The ATM, we have an ATM machine. We purchased the building with an ATM machine. And the plan is for the ATM machine to be part of the ATM project that is part of a league project where there are about 8 to 10 of us that are part of that. So we have an ATM card already. We can issue to members that we can use. They can use in four machines. One at the Boulevard in the Leagues building, one in the South in the Library Credit Union's building, one on the West Coast in the Choiseul Credit Union's building in Choiseul, and we have one on the East Coast, which is in the Monipo Credit Union building. So this fifth machine now will be in Soufriere. We have been trying to get a machine in Soufriere. In fact, the machine that is in Choiseul, when we had discussions initially, it was supposed to have been in the Choiseul Credit Union branch in Soufriere. So Soufriere people could have access to it. But they had issues with space and other logistics, so it was placed in Choiseul. So very soon I'm hoping that we could have this machine as a fifth machine for members to be able to, all over from the 8 or 10 credit unions, to be able to use. But we already started a discussion about, which was always a plan, to go into phase 2 and phase 3. We have taken a decision to skip phase 2, which is to have a local debit card to be used anywhere in St. Lucia at any other machines at any other point of sale services. But I think we're behind in terms of our schedule because of COVID. So we decided to bypass that and to go directly into an international debit card. So you could use it at anywhere around the world at any point of sale service. So that is being looked at and hopefully we can have that implemented. I can't say before the end of the year, but as soon as possible. In addition to that, one of the new services we'll be providing will be the night deposits. So the business places who may want to open accounts with us or have accounts with us who want to use that should at the end of the day to deposit their money, that service will be available as well. All right, the space is much bigger, so now we can have as many as four tellers operating at any one time. All right, we will have our separate line for if you come just to do a MoneyGram transaction or pay Shopee, you can use that line, so you wouldn't have to go onto that long line that we normally have at the end of the month. So it's going to be a work in progress as we operate there to see how best we can arrange our systems and our processes and procedures to help increase. You see the thing about people line up on the sidewalk? I hate to see that.
Yeah.
And especially in the sun
when
and
it's
the rain.
raining. Especially
Now,
when
based on
it's
where we
raining.
are located, if members are standing on the sidewalk on a morning, they get a lot of sun. All right, so we're already looking at trying to get a costing for an awning to put. But I don't think the awning will save us from the sun on a morning because of the direction.
The direction, yeah.
But it will save us from rain and so on. But I've already told my security officer, hey, we have a lot of space inside. We need to utilize that space inside, as well as our tellers have to be vigilant that we have hired 3 additional persons. By the way, we don't call them tellers anymore. We've changed the nomenclature. It's member customer service representatives. All right. So we'll have as many as 2 persons in the Soufriere branch working on a normal day. When it's busy, we can have up to 2 or 3 or 4. Sorry, 3 or 4. All right. So to try and move people so that people are not on the sidewalks and in the rain and in the sun. So we utilize our space as well as our manpower to get this thing.
Yeah. It doesn't look nice when you see a whole line. You know, and I know we're doing our utmost to ensure. Not that we do not enjoy seeing pretty faces in our building, but time means money.
Oh yeah,
right. And you do not want people standing on the line for too long. And all that is part of the customer service improvement.
Now, you know, there's something about the image of that suggests that it's prosperity. Yeah? When you see some of the people have their lines all the way down to everything, and I trying to move my lines as quickly as possible, so you see nobody.
Nobody on your line, so that means nobody's coming to your establishment.
But we are concerned about our members, and we would utilize every single space in there, with the protocols, of course, the distancing and so on, to ensure that everybody fits inside as much as possible, and we move them in and out as much as possible. Yeah.
It is now 13 minutes past midday. We have gone way beyond our time. Yeah. But before we sign out, I'm pretty sure that you're gonna give us the update whether or not you'll still be having the opening on Sunday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because of the weather.
Yeah.
So
the concern that we have as well, and I've already articulated to the board, is that even if the system stops affecting us Sunday morning, what it would do, it would effectively affect our plans to move, because we want to move, not just the ceremony, but we want to move into the building. Mm-hmm. So we close on Saturday. The Soufriere branch is closed on Saturday because we have plans to move. Mm-hmm. So we can open for Monday. So if Saturday now is not available because it's raining, when do we move so we can open on Sunday? So that may have to be the Sunday. So a decision will be taken as soon as we have enough information. Hopefully before the end of the day, we will have to take a decision, one way or the other. All right, but I can say for sure we'll open on Monday. Means that we have to.
So the public can look out for the
Monday.
new Fontainebleau Credit Union
ceremony. Yeah, we should have some refreshments on the Monday. So our members and persons who are coming in will be treated to some refreshments on Monday. Yeah. I just want to appeal to our members quickly, and potential members. Hey, that's when we need you all most now, because now we have upped the game, and so we need you all to be able to encourage more persons to join. We need you all to do more business organization, more saving, because we'll have greater demand. We have more cost. We have costs that we never had to deal with before. Depreciation of a building.
Right.
insurance now has gone up sky high because we now have to insure our building. We never had to do those things before. So, and of course, we have new staff and we have new positions and so on. So, we have some expenses that we have to offset, and I'm urging members to continue to patronize and encourage a friend, encourage a family member to join the credit union, please.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is going to pay dividends. In the not to the rate things are going, you don't even speak of the future has been a long time away. Yeah. So, and all the promises that come with having a new structure. And as we said some time ago when we spoke about purchasing the building, it provided opportunities for growth. Yeah. And you want to make maximum use of this opportunity.
I mean, just the image of where we are and where we're going to is a significant step up. So we have to step up our game, and we want our members to step up their game as well. Pay your loans as well, people who have loans, because that's one of our that's Achilles heel of any credit union. People not paying their loans.
But it's easier they pay when they get salary deduction.
Or standing orders.
Standing orders, right. Thank you, Mr. Prospere, and thank you so much, Mr. Bob, for being on our show today. It was a great pleasure. I hope to see you the last Thursday of July, right?
Yes, just call on me.
I'm hoping. And don't let Mr. Prospere come on his own. Anyway, guys, you've just heard Cooperative Matters for today. Also, don't forget that you can look out for the opening, if it's still happening, on Sunday at the new branch of the Fontechak Credit Union, which is located on Bridge Street, Soufriere.
It'll be carried live there on Facebook.
On
Liberty FM.
Liberty FM,
our
right.
Facebook page.
Right. So if you're not there and you cannot make it, you can just tune into Facebook, their live page, or Liberty FM, or the Fontechak Credit Union Facebook page. Once again, thank you, Mr. Prospere, Mr. Bob, and guys, you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. You too, man.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Yep.
Pour moi ça. Well, moi boss là pour moi $2,500. $2,500 autant l'argent quoi. Ça même vous donner. So qu'on mettre l'argent, qu'on banque l'argent, qui ça on va faire tout l'argent ça caille là. Pour ça moi même aller en banque.